Chosen one, your internal landscape has shifted into something cosmic. The old chapters written in the ink of survival and smallness are being torn out, replaced by a power that others cannot decipher. This transformation is so profound that your confidence and inner authority are messing with people's minds. You are not the version of you people remember. There was someone in your life who thought they were a chess grandmaster. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but stay with me. This person had mapped you out. They had studied you the way a grandmaster studies a board. They knew your patterns. They had catalogued your reactions. They had done the patient, methodical work of learning where every one of your emotional pieces lived and what made each one move. And more importantly, they had figured out how to make you move for them. Think about someone who is truly elite at chess. That person is so skilled that early in the game they have already seen dozens of possible futures. They have calculated the end from the beginning. They are not reacting. Everyone else is reacting. They are orchestrating. That was this person's relationship with you. They knew which emotional pressure would make you retreat. They knew which withdrawal of warmth would make you advance toward them out of anxiety. They knew which words would put you in check before you even realized a game was being played. The most devastating part, you did not know you were on a board. You thought you were in a relationship or a friendship or a family dynamic. You thought the tension you felt was just normal friction, the kind everyone navigates, the kind you work through. You did not know that every time you felt that specific gnawing low-level dread that I said the wrong thing again feeling, that I need to fix this right now feeling, that feeling was not friction. It was a calculated move, and the piece being moved was you. The fact that this person invested that much energy into mapping you out tells you everything about what they sensed was inside of you. Sophisticated people do not build elaborate control systems around people who pose no threat. The fact that someone had to construct an entire architecture around you means they felt what was coming, they sensed what you were capable of becoming, and they were trying, with everything they had, to keep a lid on it. They were right to be concerned. They just could not stop what was already in motion. Something started happening inside of you, and at first even you did not know what it was. It was not dramatic. There was no single moment, no lightning bolt, no one conversation that changed everything overnight. It was more like watching a seed grow in time-lapse. From the outside, nothing seems to be happening for the longest time. The soil just sits there. And then one day there is the tiniest crack in the surface. The crack becomes a split. And what comes out of that split is something green, alive and absolutely inevitable. It was always going to come. The soil was just the waiting room. That is what started happening in you. A crack appeared, then a split opened, and then something unstoppable began pushing its way up through all the weight that had been piled on top of it. You started making different choices, small ones first, the kind nobody notices from the outside. Maybe you stopped apologizing for things that were not your fault. Maybe you started sitting with a feeling instead of immediately managing everyone else's comfort around it. Maybe you started asking yourself, quietly, in moments nobody else could see, is this actually what I want, or is this what I have been trained to want so that someone else stays comfortable? These were not grand gestures. They were micro-decisions, the kind that do not register on the outside for a long time. But inside, they were seismic, because every one of those micro-decisions was a page coming out of the old book. And every time you chose differently, something truer went back in. Here is what nobody tells you about the upgrade process. It is not linear, and it is not clean. Some days you felt like the most grounded version of yourself. Other days you felt like you had lost every piece of progress and gone back to zero. Some days the old patterns rushed back with a force that shocked you, and on those days, especially on those days, the work was to not abandon what you had been building. The work was to look at the old pattern, understand it, choose differently anyway, and keep going. That invisible, unglamorous, nobody is watching and nobody is clapping, work is what created the version of you that exists right now, the version that is messing with minds, the version that cannot be read anymore, the version nobody saw coming. And here is what is important to understand about the shape of that work. It did not look the way transformation looks in the stories people tell about it. There was no clean before and after. There were days where the most significant thing you did was simply refuse to say the self-destructive thing you almost said. There were days where the victory was staying in the discomfort a little longer instead of immediately reaching for the familiar escape. There were days where choosing yourself meant sitting alone in a quiet room and deciding slowly, painstakingly, without ceremony, that you were worth the choosing. Nobody clapped for those days. Nobody saw them. But those days are the foundation of every single thing about you that is messing with people's minds right now. The groundedness that others cannot explain, the stillness they cannot crack, the authority they cannot access, all of it was built on those quiet, private, completely uncelebrated days of choosing differently. And that foundation is not going anywhere because you did not build it for an audience. You built it for yourself. And what you build for yourself is the only kind that holds. If this message aligned with your purpose, hype this video so fellow chosen ones can find their confirmation. What you built through all that invisible work, through those micro decisions, through the hard nights and the harder mornings, through every moment you chose differently, even when the familiar way was right there, is not what most people think confidence is. Most people think confidence is loud. They think it is about taking up the most space in the room, having the biggest voice, landing the sharpest comeback. That is not what you have. What you have is something much rarer and much more powerful. You have quiet authority. Quiet authority is what happens when you walk into a room and you do not need to announce anything, because everything that is necessary about who you are arrives before you open your mouth. It is what you carry when someone tries to destabilize you, and instead of producing a storm, you offer a wall of still water, deep, dark, and utterly unmovable. It is the quality of knowing what you know with such settled rootedness that outside opinions about it simply do not reach you. Not because you are in denial, and not because you are performing indifference, but because you have done the real work of knowing yourself. And once you genuinely know yourself, the outside noise loses its signal entirely. That is what is in the chest now. The version of you that is completely anchored to yourself. The version whose confidence does not come from what anyone else thinks or says or gives or withholds. The version that has become through fire, through work, through the kind of patience that only gets forged in someone who had no choice but to endure and keep going, fully and permanently at home inside your own skin. The person who had the board all figured out built their entire game around exploiting the version of you that was not at home in your own skin. Every strategy they had was calibrated to someone who could be moved by their approval and broken by their withdrawal. What they are about to discover, and this is the moment the story turns, is that when you removed that vulnerability, you did not just become harder to manipulate, you became impossible to beat. It is not your success that is short-circuiting the people around you who are not ready for this version of you. People can handle watching someone become successful. They file it away under luck, timing, or circumstance. They have plenty of categories for success that do not threaten their worldview. What they do not have a category for is what you are carrying right now, the thing they cannot file away neatly, the thing that keeps turning over in their minds because it refuses to fit any box they own. What is messing with their minds is the combination. It is confidence without arrogance. It is strength without aggression. It is softness without weakness. It is knowing without needing to prove it. The fact that you can sit in a room and be completely at peace while someone else is trying everything to get a rise out of you, and not one part of you reaches for the bait, that specific combination is not supposed to exist in someone who was, in their memory, very much available to be rattled. What compounds the confusion is that you are not performing any of it. That is what keeps pulling people back to you in disbelief. They are looking for the seams. They are waiting for the mask to slip. They are watching for the tell that says the old version is still in there somewhere, just buried, just waiting to be provoked back to the surface. And the reason they cannot find the seams is that there are no seams. This is not a strategy you adopted, this is who you actually are now. The peace is structural, the confidence is load-bearing, the authority is built into the foundation of who you have become, not painted on the outside. When that realization starts to dawn on someone, that the version of you they stored in memory is not on pause, not in a holding pattern, not temporarily unavailable, that is when the real messing with minds happens, because it means the leverage they held is gone. And there is nothing more disorienting to someone who built power on knowing you than discovering they do not know you at all anymore. You've probably noticed a lot of chosen one channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation, and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. The Grandmaster noticed the board was not responding. The moves that always worked stopped producing results. The pressure points that had been so reliable stopped generating reactions. So the reach extended further, more pressure was applied, and new angles were tried that had never been needed before. Nothing worked. The reason nothing worked is the reason your book is sacred. The cover of your book is visible to everyone around you. The energy coming off it has clearly changed, the weight of it, the size of it, the unmistakable sense that something major has shifted. But the pages themselves cannot be opened, they cannot be read, because the work you did to get here was private. The milestones were never publicly logged. The breakthroughs belonged to you alone. The moments where everything shifted happened in territory that nobody else has a map to, because you built that territory yourself, in the only place transformation ever actually happens, which is in the deep, private, sacred interior of who you are. Someone who was close to you assumed that their proximity gave them access, but proximity to your external life does not grant access to your internal architecture. That person was present for your history while you were quietly transforming your foundation underneath their feet, and the transformation happened in the one place they could never follow you. So now they are looking at someone who used to be one page and has become an entire volume, someone who carries real authority, someone whose presence commands something without demanding it. The path from there to here is completely invisible to them because it was invisible by design. You did the work in private, you earned the pages in private, and the sacred pages are yours alone. A grandmaster who cannot read the board has already lost. Notice what that realization does to someone who thought they had you completely figured out. There was a specific moment, and you know exactly which moment, even if you have never framed it this way before, when someone reached for you the way they always used to reach for you. The energetic reach, the move that always produced a result, and the piece did not move. You did not react. Not because you were suppressing it, not because you were white-knuckling your way through the moment. You did not react because the reaction simply was not there anymore. The wound they were pressing on had healed. The button they were pushing had been deactivated. And in the absence of the reaction they were counting on, there was simply you, steady, present, clear-eyed, with absolutely no urgency to manage anyone else's discomfort or fold yourself into whatever shape the moment seemed to require. That moment created a structural fracture in the foundation of everything that person believed about themselves and about you, and about the dynamic between you. Because the power they held was never inherent, it was relational. It only existed in the space between their move and your reaction. Remove the reaction, and there is no power. There is just someone standing in an empty room making moves that land on air. Everything that person had built, the certainty about your limitations, the confidence in their ability to manage this dynamic, the whole elaborate architecture of their control began to crumble. Not because you attacked it, because you simply stopped holding it up. That is the secret they never wanted you to know. You were the one holding it up the whole time. Your compliance was the infrastructure their power was built on. Your anxiety was the fuel their control ran on. Your need for external approval was the lock that kept the whole system in place. And the moment you stopped complying, stopped running on anxiety, and stopped reaching for their approval, the system had nothing left to stand on, and down it went. Now let us be honest about what that moment actually felt like for you. That moment of not reacting, of holding your ground when the old version of you would have immediately folded or fought back, was not easy. The body has muscle memory. The nervous system runs old programs automatically. Staying steady in that moment required the full weight of everything you had built in private to show up all at once and hold the line. And it did. That is the proof that the work was real. Not that you felt nothing. You may have felt everything, but you did not let what you felt pull you back into a dynamic that no longer had anything to offer you. That is not numbness, and that is not suppression. That is someone who has developed enough inner architecture to feel something completely and still choose not to be governed by it. That is what real strength looks like, not the absence of feeling but the presence of choice. When you did not react, when you held your ground without a word, without a flinch, without any of the emotional responsiveness that someone had trained themselves to expect from you, you communicated something more precise than any speech could have delivered. You communicated it with your energy, and what you communicated was this: I see exactly what is happening here, I know exactly what this is, and I have outgrown the version of me that would have given you what you are looking for. That message, delivered without a syllable, in the space where your reaction used to live, is the most commanding thing a person can say. It requires nothing from the other side. It does not ask for understanding or agreement or acknowledgement or apology. It simply states, in the clearest possible energetic language, that the transaction someone came here to complete is no longer available, the shop is closed, the currency they plan to use is not accepted here. What makes this so specifically powerful in the context of your confidence and your inner authority is this: the people who knew you before, whose mental image of you is frozen at a version that could be rattled and destabilized, read your stillness and do not know what to do with it. At first they assume you are holding back. They assume that underneath the calm there is a storm they just have not found the key to yet. So they probe, they try another angle, and they get the same stillness. Then a slow, cold realization starts to settle over them. This is not restraint. This is not a dam holding back water. There is no water. The storm has been completely replaced by something else, something that is not accessible to them, something their entire toolkit was not built to handle. Your silence was not passive, it was domination. When someone builds a life on extraction, on taking rather than building, on leveraging what belongs to someone else rather than generating what is their own, a very specific thing happens when the source of extraction is removed. The real accounting arrives. And without you there to absorb what should have landed on them, without your compliance softening consequences that were always meant to be theirs, the weight of those accumulated choices fell exactly where it was always supposed to fall. The story that person had told, the version where you were the problem, the reason, the one to blame for every difficulty, collapsed the moment you exited it, because the difficulties continued, and the direction the needle moved was not in the direction they had confidently expected. Here is what I want you to feel about that. Not satisfaction, not a score being settled, something quieter and more solid than either of those things. The universe keeps accurate books. What you poured into yourself, what you invested in your own growth and healing, what you chose when choosing yourself was genuinely costly. All of that is being returned to you now, in the form of the life that is opening up around you, and in the form of the abundance that is moving toward you, with the specificity that does not belong to luck. And what was taken, what was never accounted for, what was refused rather than reckoned with, that is being returned to its rightful destination too, with the same precision, with the same inevitability. Divine timing is not slow, it is exact. The abundance moving toward you right now is not random. It is not the universe being casually generous the way a warm afternoon is generous to anyone standing outside. It is specific, it is calibrated, it is the precise return on the precise investment you made in yourself. Every time you chose to heal instead of harden, every time you took the longer, more honest road when the shortcut was sitting right there, every time you sat with something uncomfortable instead of pushing it outward onto someone else, every time you chose your own expansion over the familiar comfort of staying small and contracted and safe. Those choices are deposits, and the account they go into does not offer modest returns. When you invest in becoming genuinely and structurally more of who you actually are, when you do the work that most people spend their entire lives actively avoiding, the return that comes back is amplified in a way that ordinary cause and effect cannot fully account for. What you built is rare, and rare things carry a value that common things simply cannot match. You are not chasing anymore. You are attracting. You are pulling the right things into your orbit without hunting for them, because the frequency you are operating at now is a completely different frequency than before, and different frequencies draw different results. Doors that used to require enormous effort are opening with noticeably less resistance. The right people are arriving without you having to go looking for them. What is flowing toward you right now is everything you planted in the dark finally breaking through the surface. Do not minimize it. Do not call it luck. Do not let anyone around you talk you into believing that what is arriving in your life is anything other than the earned, deserved, cosmically accurate return on your own extraordinary work. You chose this, you built this, and what is coming is yours. You used to have to work to be taken seriously in rooms. You used to calculate how to position yourself, how to phrase things, how to show up in a way that earned you the space you needed. That calculation is gone. Not because rooms changed, but because you changed. The version of you that walks into a space now does not require permission to be present. You are not asking the room to accommodate you. The room is accommodating itself around you. And the difference between those two dynamics is the difference between someone who has arrived and someone who is still auditioning. You are done auditioning. That season closed. What opened in its place is the season of simply being exactly who you are, and letting that be more than enough, because it is. And now the Grandmaster looks at the empty board and starts moving toward you. Not with the old strategy. That strategy failed and the failure is understood, so the approach is upgraded. It comes softer, more curious, warmer than you have seen in a long time, with a warmth that functions more like a costume than a genuine character change. The whole approach is designed to find a new angle, a new entry point, a new way back into a life that radiates abundance and alignment and forward motion, everything that is currently absent from where that person is standing. You have discernment, not suspicion, discernment. And there is a significant difference between those two things. Suspicion closes you off to everything. Discernment opens you to the right things while keeping you clear-eyed about the rest. Your inner authority is going to register something before your mind has fully formed an opinion. Pay attention to that registration. The quiet internal signal that says the words are fine but the energy underneath them is misaligned, that the warmth is present but it is directed at acquiring something rather than genuinely offering something. That signal is not paranoia. That signal is the most valuable output of all the work you have done on yourself. Look at the patterns over time, not just the presentation in this one carefully constructed moment. Real transformation leaves tracks. It is visible in how someone shows up consistently, in how they treat people when nothing is at stake, in how they handle things that do not go their way, in who they are when no one of consequence is watching. That evidence is everywhere, in a person who has genuinely done the work. And in a person who has not, no amount of fluency in the language of growth will manufacture it. You do not need to make a speech about any of this. You do not need to explain yourself or justify your clarity. You simply need to see clearly, trust what you see, and move accordingly. Your inner authority was not built so you could set it aside the moment someone's approach got softer. It was built so you could see through every approach, soft or otherwise, and make the choice that belongs to where you are going, not where you used to be. Your life does not have a vacancy for energy that requires you to make yourself less so that someone else feels more. Your life does not have a vacancy for peace that is conditional on your compliance. Your life does not have a vacancy for access granted to people whose history with you was built on the assumption that you would stay manageable and predictable and emotionally available on demand. Those vacancies closed, not out of bitterness. You are not carrying bitterness. They closed out of fullness. You filled those spaces with things that actually belong there, with people who meet you where you actually are, with work that is aligned with who you have become, with a relationship to yourself that is so established and so honest that there is simply no room left for what used to occupy and drain and diminish you. A closed vacancy is not a wall, it is not hostility, it is just a full house, and a full house has no room to spare. Remember that the next time someone tries to make you feel like your clarity is something to apologize for, those pages that were flying out, the old chapters, the survival chapters, the ones written in the language of smallness and anxiety and whatever you need, I will become it. Those were not wasted. They were not evidence of failure. They were not time gone wrong. They were the first draft. And every book worth reading has a first draft. Every piece of work that ultimately moves people has pages that had to be cleared away first, because the pages that came out were the pages that no longer belonged to the person writing the book. The pages that went back in, the ones now sitting at the center of the cosmic chest, those are the true pages, the ones that were always underneath, waiting for everything piled on top of them to finally be cleared away. The book that you are now is not a book anyone else can read. Not the grandmaster with all their strategies, not the person who thought they had you completely mapped, not the audience for the gossip, and not the people who built their assumptions about your future on the certainty that you would stay the size they decided you were. None of them have access to what is on these pages, because these pages were written in private, in the dark, in the moments when you chose yourself without any applause and without any guarantee that it would matter. But the effect of those pages is completely visible. The effect is the stillness in you that does not break. The effect is the confidence that does not need to announce itself. The effect is the authority that arrives before you speak and stays long after you leave. The effect is a life that is opening, expanding, and moving into territory that the first draft version of you could not have imagined standing in. And you, the Grandmaster's former piece who refused to stay a piece, are not on that old board anymore. You looked at that game, recognized it for exactly what it was, set your pieces down with complete calm, and walked into a different room. In that room you are not a piece, you are the player. The rules are different, the way things move is different, and what can be built there is something the old game never could have produced. Be careful, not fearful, but careful. Do not take the risks that nostalgia or someone else's tactical warmth will try to invite you into. The old board is designed to feel familiar, and familiar for you used to mean comfortable, but you know now that familiar is not always safe, and safe is not always comfortable. What is actually safe is where you are right now. It is in the life that is opening. It is in the version of yourself that is the page going back in, the true page, the real one, the one that belongs, chosen one. Every day you live as this version of yourself. Every day you hold your peace over the noise. Every day you let your inner authority be exactly what it is without shrinking it back down to a size that makes someone else comfortable. Another page goes in. What is being written right now, in real time, in the sacred interior of a life being fully and unapologetically claimed, is the best chapter yet, and it is only going to keep getting better. The cup is overflowing, the book keeps upgrading, the chest stays cosmic, and you finally, fully, irreversibly, stay you. Walk in it, every room, every day, every single time someone expects the version of you that they remember. Give them the version you have become instead. Watch what that does to the room. Watch how it lands. Watch the space recalibrate around someone who is no longer available to be the person others decided you were. Nobody counted on this. They never count on the chosen one actually choosing themselves, fully, permanently, without apology and without going back. The version of you at the beginning of this story, the one sitting in the soil, the one waiting, the one whose book was full of pages that needed to come out, that version was not a mistake. That version was not something to be ashamed of or distance yourself from. That version did something extraordinary. It endured, it stayed, it kept the flame lit when every external condition said it should go out. And because that version endured, this version exists, the one standing here now, in full confidence, in full authority, in the full quiet power of someone who has completed a transformation that most people only talk about completing. You actually did it. The book in the cosmic chest is the proof, and every page that went back in belongs to a version of you that is more true, more real, and more fully yourself than anything that came before it. The throne is yours. Stay on it.